Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars video. I'm so excited about this one. I haven't spoken about The Bad Batch since the third season came to an end, and yet, it's one of my favourite animated Star Wars shows. I covered it from day one. It was a pleasure breaking down all 3 seasons, learning about Omega. Do you remember all of our theory videos? We spoke about Emery, Echo, was Tech really dead? The answer unfortunately was yes, but it was such a fun, heartfelt series to cover, and I have to admit, I do miss those days. But today we get to talk about it again, because we just had the craziest revelation. Star Wars might be about to repeat its wild Andor Season 2 ending twist. It was such a shock to learn that Andor and Bix had a child that Cassian would never know, because he would soon die on Scarif. Well, Lucasfilm just teased they might be doing something very similar with the Bad Batch, notably Tech. In the new novel, Star Wars Sanctuary, which takes place in the middle of the Bad Batch Season 2, so just before Tech's death, they explore his relationship with Phee Genoa, and they make it very obvious it was more than just a fling. There was something genuine and valuable blossoming between the two characters. It's so unambiguous. In their conversations, they talk about their future, and now I'm pretty certain had Tech not died, the two would have grown old together. And considering at the end of the show, at the end of the third season and during the epilogue, the rest of Clone Force 99 was able to retire on Pabu, if Tech was still around, that would have made things easier for him, having his wife and his brothers by his side. But I guess it wasn't meant to be. But what if I told you that just like Cassian, Tech might have a child he never knew about? The novel implies this. Let's take a look. A few weeks before his death on Eriadu, Tech and Phee go shopping together, the same way Cassian and Bix did, and they're making flirtatious suggestions about sharing a hotel room and a bed. We'll come back to this in just a moment. In Chapter 22, Tech and Phee talk about having children, and they use the example of the clone Ponda and his wife Sohi as proof that clones can indeed have kids. I've seen a few fans get a bit confused about this and say, well, didn't he already know this because of Cut's LaQuaine? But you have to remember his kids are not his biological children. They're his wife Sue's kids from before she met Cut. So this book gives us a new couple, Ponda and his wife Sohi, and watching the couple raise a child makes Tech want the same thing. Here is the passage. Tech glanced over at Phee, who was focused entirely on the exchange between Hunter and Sohi. She didn't notice him watching her. That was fine. Tech didn't care for attention in moments like this. Moments he didn't allow himself often. His focus was generally problem solving on behalf of the team. He rarely thought of himself, apart from Clone Force 99. Yet, right then, with Phee in sight, he skirted possibilities. Future possibilities. Children, a family. And then later, my friends, in Chapter 30, he speaks directly to Phee about it, saying this. It was never clear if we clones could sire children. Thinking about Ponda and Sohi, Phee responds, seems like the mystery's been solved, brown eyes. How do you feel about that? Tech felt a loaded question. It proves a hypothesis I've held for some time. I'd love more data on the potential number of clone offspring throughout the galaxy, but I imagine that would be hard to come by. Phee chuckles and says, you're good at solving hard problems. The big question is, if you could gather that data, what would you do with it? What would it mean to you? Tech was stumped and nervously responds, I don't know what to say. Now, the outright acknowledgement of not just a future together, but also potential offspring has to be deliberate on Lucasfilm's end. It culminates with the mystery that's never solved in the book, whether Tech and Phee actually share a room at the hotel. It seems more likely that this was never confirmed or clarified for a reason, but it opens the door to so many possibilities. Omega might become an aunt. We have no idea if Phee was secretly pregnant in the final season after Tech's death. While it was never acknowledged on screen, it could be a similar situation to Bix. We didn't know she was pregnant until the child was born. They never showed us her pregnancy. A future novel, or maybe a future animated show, could reveal this, that Tech has a secret child. It seems like a trope Lucasfilm is kind of obsessed with at the moment, and while it's cool on the one hand the expanded universe did very similar things, I worry they're using it as a way to never have to create original characters for the future. It's a way for Lucasfilm to continue the legacy of a deceased character, and I would argue based on Dave Filoni's comments at the 20th anniversary of Lucasfilm Animation, that this could be something in his purview. We have the Maul series coming soon, Maul Shadow Lord, but he also teases some big plans for the future. They have a roadmap, but they haven't revealed everything yet. He spoke about the next 20 years of Lucasfilm Animation. That's a very long time, with no doubt plenty more animated shows to come. As Lucasfilm moves all of its live-action content to the big screen, I think the role of Disney Plus for Star Wars is going to be the home of animation, more tales of anthologies, maybe more Clone Wars spin-offs, maybe stuff in the New Republic to accompany the Mandoverse, and my prediction is if Tech does have a child, they'll be explored in the next thing Omega appears in. Now it should be said, I don't think everyone is happy about this. It can become a harmful or tiresome trope if not done right. The author of the book, Lamar Giles, didn't want to say much about this, but he says that Sohee and Ponda were meant to be a what-if of Tech and Fi. They saw themselves in that couple because it was a what-if Tech hadn't died. Does that necessarily mean they're going to continue Tech's legacy, a secret child that Fi raises? I don't know. But it's another avenue Lucasfilm can explore if they want to, even if they don't have a plan at the moment. Similar to what Tony Gilroy said about Bix's child. We don't know the name or the gender, there is no canon written about them, but it's just in case Lucasfilm ever wants to come back to these characters. Because Cassian is dead, we know what happens in Rogue One, that door is shut, but someday maybe Cassian's child becomes part of the New Republic. I guess the most surprising thing about the Bad Batch revelation is that we always assumed Omega was the legacy of the Batch. And if you guys remember in Season 2, she had a very powerful heart-to-heart with Tech. How even though he doesn't always show it, he is human and he does feel emotions, even if he doesn't express them the same way his sister and brothers do. I really love Tech, and honestly, I'm in two minds about this. On the one hand, it'd be really awesome, especially if the child grows up to be something very different, but on the other hand, if they're going to do this with every dead character, like I said, it's going to become an overdone, tiresome trope. I honestly don't want this child to distract from Omega's journey because I think it's obvious Dave Filoni wants to do more with her, especially during the Age of the Rebellion, and in a way, she is the legacy of all of her brothers. She learnt something unique from each of them, including Tech. Now overall with this book, I think it was fine. It was a fun little read, it definitely feels in line with the show, so it's good it's not too jarring and too different. Sometimes Time material feels like an entirely different universe, but not in this case. Now the reason I'm not overly praising this novel is because it's set in what I think is the weakest part of the show. You guys probably remember I said this at the time, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Pabu arc. It's sandwiched in between two incredible episodes, Outpost and Tipping Point, but if there was one episode I would skip, it'd be Pabu, and this entire novel is centered around the aftermath of it. Don't let me dissuade you though, if Pabu was your cuppa, I'd say pick it up, but I'd wish they'd expand post Season 3. My rankings for the Bad Batch, I love Season 1, love Season 3, I enjoy Season 2, but I prefer the first and the third. I would go as far as to say that the third season is probably the strongest bit of animation since Star Wars Rebels, and Rebels is by far my favourite of the animated shows. But I really got into the Bad Batch, and even though people found Omega annoying, I really love the character. I mean, come on, she has the name Meg in her name, of course I'm gonna love her. But jokes aside, she underwent a very powerful arc, and Season 3 had the biggest payoffs. She was quintessential to the Tantis escape, even being a role model for the other kids. So just like Ahsoka Tano, when she was first introduced in the Clone Wars movie in 2008, fans criticized her, called her whiny, said why does Anakin need a Padawan, but as she grew, as we watched her evolve in the 3D show, then in Rebels, in Tales of the Jedi, in Mando, and then her own series Ahsoka, fans grew to love her. And you guys know if you've been watching me for a few years, I've always predicted the same is going to be true of Omega, and Grogu, as well as Captain Rex. I think Alpha, Boba Fett, and Omega are the legacy of the clones, and I'm excited to see what they do with her. And even though there is this break where we're not seeing any of her at the moment, I think she's going to play an essential role in the future of the franchise. I can't say when or where she's going to appear next, if it's going to be Ahsoka, if it's going to be some other project, but I think Filoni has big plans for her. And now, maybe Tech's son or daughter. You know, I've spoken on the channel plenty of times about the legacy of the clones and the prequel era being very popular. Even if they move away from it, I think it's going to be a long time until the traces and legacy of the Clone Wars disappear entirely. Captain Rex is still around, we don't know the fates of the other brothers of Clone Force 99, Omega is out there, and even Maul Shadow Lord is linked. It's set only 1 year after the Clone Wars Season 7. There are still going to be familiar faces. I can imagine in many ways they're still going to tie it back, because Maul is navigating the underworld and the galaxy post Order 66, and he's actively learning about the new Empire and tracking down Darth Vader, so I don't expect it to be entirely removed. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. Share your thoughts on this and everything we spoke about in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, my dear friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.